Hello everyone. Tonight, we're diving into a story that'll give you chills. An entire civilization vanishing like it never existed. Picture waking up to find everything. Your home, your friends, the whole world you know gone. No trace. That's the mystery of the Anasazi, the people who built incredible cliffside cities in the American Southwest, then poof, disappeared. Before you snuggle into your blanket and scroll through TikTok, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. It's so cool to know who's joining us from around the globe. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let me pull you back 800 years to an early morning in Chaco Canyon. The sun's just rising, its golden light blazing like a concert spotlight. But there's no Bluetooth speaker blasting your chill playlist. Instead, you hear the wind whistling through cracks in the rocks like a creepy whisper. The air is bone dry, the smell of red dust clogging your nose, and the morning chill makes your skin prickle. You open your eyes and find yourself sitting on a flat stone, staring at a village built from thousands of stacked rocks, like a giant Lego set someone meticulously pieced together. This is the home of the Anasazi, or rather, the ancestral Puebloans, as history calls them. You stand up, your bare feet hitting the freezing ground, feeling like you've stepped onto a bathroom floor at midnight. Around you, towering stone walls, intricately carved, lead into a maze of small, dark rooms. Every step crunches sand beneath your feet, as if the earth itself is telling its story. You catch a whiff of smoke, not vape clouds, but the sharp scent of burning wood mixed with something like roasted corn. Hungry yet? Don't dream of Uber Eats. Breakfast here, if you're lucky, is a handful of ground corn mush mixed with water, maybe served with a side of fried bugs. Sound appetizing? Imagine you're an Anasazi, about 20 years old, living in the 12th century. Your body's exhausted, not from work deadlines, but from staying up all night staring at the stars, trying to figure out what they're saying about the next harvest. The Anasazi didn't have Google Calendar, but they had something scarier. Nature. Everything, rain, sun, even the rabbits you hunted, decided whether you'd live or die. You step out of a cramped stone room where your whole family slept crammed together on yucca-woven mats. The smell of sweat, dust, and the breath of 5 other people lingers in the air. Think a crowded gym is bad? Try living in a windowless rock apartment. Outside, you see others starting their day. An old woman grinds corn, the stone scraping together with a grating sound, like a loop track that makes you want to bang your head against a wall. A kid runs by, waving a stick, chasing a scrawny dog. His laughter echoes, but there's something fragile about it, like he knows life here isn't easy. You pass a man carving an arrowhead, his eyes sharp, like he's prepping for drama bigger than anything you'd see on Twitter. The Anasazi didn't just build homes, they built a world. Structures like Pueblo Bonito, a massive complex with hundreds of rooms, prove how brilliant they were. Think of it as a prehistoric condo, but without elevators or Wi-Fi. Archaeologists found roads stretching dozens of miles, linking Anasazi communities like an ancient Instagram network made of dirt and stone. They traded turquoise, feathers, and seashells from as far as California's coast. Think grocery shopping is a hassle? Try walking 300 miles to trade for a necklace. But this isn't a story of glory. Oh no, my friend. This story's much darker. Imagine standing on a cliff, looking down at the valley. The sun burns your skin, sweat drips down your forehead, and you realize your water jug's been empty since yesterday. The ground around you is cracked, trees withered, and somewhere a crow caws, like it's mocking your existence. Scientists say a brutal drought hit this region in the 13th century, lasting decades. No rain, no crops, no food. Think waiting in line at Starbucks is rough? Try waiting to starve. You head back to the village, your stomach growling. A woman, maybe your sister, is trying to light wet firewood, the smoke stinging your eyes. She coughs, and you notice she's thinner than last week. People start whispering, their voices tense. The gods have abandoned us, one says. We have to leave, another mutters. But go where? You look out, seeing only silent mountains and a cloudless sky. No GPS, no map, just fear squeezing your chest. Pause for a second and think. What would you do if everything you knew fell apart? No electricity, no internet, no supermarkets. The Anasazi had no choice but to face that harsh reality. Archaeologists found evidence of their decline. Abandoned villages, rooms filled with ash, and sometimes signs of violence. Some say they fought each other, scrapping over the last drops of water. Others say they fled, blending into other tribes. But no one knows for sure. That's what makes this story so eerie. A civilization vanishes, leaving questions bigger than social media drama. Now, picture yourself sitting by a small fire. Its flickering light dancing on your face. The wood crackles, and you hear footsteps in the dark. You grip your stick tightly, heart pounding. Enemy? Or just the wind? You don't know, and that's the scariest part. The Anasazi lived with that fear day after day until they were gone. So, how long do you think you'd last in their world? A week? A month? Or would you be the first to run, begging to get back to Netflix and iced coffee? Let me tell you, this story's just getting started, and things are about to get way worse. The sun's high now, scorching everything like someone cranked the oven to max. You're standing in Chaco Canyon, sweat pouring down, soaking your yucca fiber tunic that scratches your skin like wearing a wool sweater in summer. The air's so dry, every breath feels like inhaling dust from an abandoned construction site. Around you, the crunch of stones underfoot as other Anasazi hurry along, like they're trying to outrun something. You want to scream for a bubble tea, but here, the only tea is murky water from a half-dried stream a mile south. You lift your aching feet, trudging forward, trying to blend into the village's rhythm, but all you can think is, how did they survive this hell? Imagine you're starting your workday, but instead of opening your laptop, you're dragging a rock the size of a dining table to build another wall. The Anasazi didn't have weekends or work-life balance. Your job was survival, and today, you're tasked with fetching water. Sounds simple, right? Wrong. You hoist a heavy clay jug, your shoulders screaming like they've been punched repeatedly. The path to the stream is littered with sharp pebbles, each step stabbing your bare soles. Think walking to the gym is tough? Try trekking 5 miles under blazing sun just to haul back water you're not even sure is drinkable. When you reach the stream, it's not the sparkling flow from a bottled water ad. It's a muddy puddle, reeking of earth and something like dead algae. You kneel trying to filter the water through a cloth, but sand still slips through, crunching between your teeth when you take a sip. It tastes like dishwater. You glance around and see a young girl, maybe 15, doing the same. Her hair's matted with sweat, her hands cracked from endless work. She looks up, her eyes empty, like an office worker after 3 straight days of overtime. You want to say something comforting, but then you remember. Here, no one has time for emotional drama. On your way back, you hear whispers from a group gathered near a kiva, a circular underground chamber where the Anasazi held rituals. Curious, you sneak closer, careful not to spill your jug. The smell of smoke wafts up, mixed with the sharp sting of burning herbs, like someone lit heavy-duty mosquito incense. You hear a deep voice echoing from the darkness. The stars have warned us. Mother Earth is angry. Your heart races. You don't believe in gods, but when the world around you is crumbling, you start wondering if you're cursed. Think Zoom meetings are bad? Try sitting through a 3-hour prayer session, stomach growling, with mosquitoes buzzing in your ears. The Anasazi believed everything, rain, crops, was controlled by gods. They built massive structures like Pueblo Bonito not just to live in, but to honor those gods. Archaeologists found rooms stuffed with offerings, from turquoise to rare feathers. Think of it as an ancient version of flexing on Instagram. But instead of showing off a Gucci bag, they flaunted devotion to the divine. But even those rituals couldn't save them. Scientists say the drought that began in the 13th century wasn't a passing storm. It lasted decades, turning cornfields into deserts, streams into memories. You trudge back to the village, shoulders aching, the jug heavy as if you're carrying the world. An old man, face wrinkled like a map, gestures for you to sit. His name's Tawa, the village storyteller, and his voice is low, each word heavy with centuries. He talks of the golden days when Chaco Canyon was the heart of the Anasazi world, when traders brought shimmering seashells and vibrant parrot feathers. You try to listen, but the heat clouds your brain, and all you want is to collapse. Tawa glares at you, eyes sharp as knives. Don't sleep, child. When Mother Earth stops singing, we must listen. You shiver, not from cold, but because you know he's right. Something's coming, and it's not good. Picture yourself getting back to work, but now everything's falling apart. You hear rumors that a nearby village was abandoned. No one knows where they went, only that they left in the night, leaving behind dusty rooms and shattered pottery. You look around, realizing your village is dying too. The cornfields are just withered stalks, like bony fingers clawing up from the earth. Kids don't run anymore. They sit silently, eyes sunken from hunger. Think losing Wi-Fi is a disaster? Try watching your family starve with no way to help. You decide to find answers. You climb a cliff, the wind howling in your ears like a warning. From here, you see the valley, but it's no longer the lush scene from Tawa's stories. It's a dead land, cracked and lifeless. You sit, hugging your knees, trying not to panic. Then you hear something, not wind, not crows, but footsteps. You spin around, spotting a figure in the shadows, a few meters away. Your heart pounds, hand clutching a rock. Who's there? You shout, but only silence answers. Think horror movies on Netflix are scary? Try facing nameless darkness in a world without streetlights. Archaeologists found evidence that as the drought worsened, Anasazi society fractured. Some villages show signs of violence, broken bones, arrow marks. Some say they turned on each other, fighting over the last resources. Others think outsiders attacked, seeing weakness. But there are stranger theories. Some researchers found signs of disturbing rituals, as if the Anasazi tried to appease their gods in ways you don't want to think about over dinner. You sprint back to the village, breathing hard, palms sweaty. You tell Tawa about the figure, but he just shakes his head. That wasn't a person, he says, eyes distant. It was our shadow. You don't understand, but you don't dare ask. That night, you lie on your mat, listening to the wind howl through the stones like a song of doom. You try to sleep, but the image of that figure haunts you. Think your modern nightmares are bad? Try living in a world where every day is a nightmare, with no off button. So, what would you do when the world turns against you? Fight, flee, or bow to fate? Think about it, because this story's far from over, and I promise, things are only getting worse. You're still here, right? If something in this story's got your attention, or if there's a question dancing in your head right now, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, let's not keep you waiting any longer. Take a deep breath, get cozy, and let's dive into the next leg of this journey. Things are about to get even wilder. The night air clings to your skin like a damp cloth, cold and heavy, as you lie awake in your stone room. The wind outside howls through Chaco Canyon, rattling the walls like it's trying to break in. You pull your yucca mat closer, but it's about as comforting as sleeping on a yoga mat during a power outage. Every creak of the stone, every rustle in the dark makes your heart skip. You can still see that shadowy figure from the cliff in your mind's eye, its shape burned into your brain like a bad jump scare from a horror flick. You tell yourself it was nothing, just exhaustion, hunger, or the desert playing tricks. But deep down, you know better. Something's wrong in this village, and it's not just the drought. You think your 3 a.m. anxiety spirals are bad? Try lying awake wondering if tomorrow's the day you starve, or worse. Morning comes, but it's no relief. The sky's a dull gray, like someone forgot to pay the sun's electric bill. You drag yourself up, muscles aching from yesterday's trek for water. The air smells of dust and something sour, like spoiled food nobody's brave enough to touch. You step outside, and the village feels off. Fewer people are moving about, their faces gaunt, eyes darting like they're waiting for bad news. You spot Tawa, the old storyteller, sitting by a crumbling wall, sharpening a flint knife with slow, deliberate strokes. His hands are steady, but his eyes are heavy, like he's carrying secrets too big for one man. You want to ask about last night's shadow, but the way he grips that knife makes you think twice. You think dodging awkward small talk at a party is tough? Try approaching a guy who looks like he's one bad day away from carving his own legend. You're handed a new task today, helping repair a section of the village wall. It's not exactly glamorous. Think less HGTV home makeover and more stacking rocks until your back gives out. You join a group of workers, their hands calloused, clothes patched with scraps of hide. One of them, a wiry guy named Kale, cracks a joke about how the wall's the only thing keeping the spirits out. His laugh is sharp, but it dies fast when nobody joins in. You grab a stone, its rough edges biting into your palms, and heave it into place. The work's grueling, each rock heavier than the last, and the sun's back to its old tricks, burning your neck like you're standing under a heat lamp. Sweat stings your eyes, and the constant thud of stones being stacked sounds like a heartbeat, steady but ominous. As you work, Kale starts talking, his voice low so the others don't hear. He tells you about whispers in the village, stories of people disappearing. Not whole families, not yet, but lone hunters, young women, even kids. They go out to gather wood or check traps, he says, and they don't come back. You feel a chill, and it's not from the wind. You ask if it's raiders, maybe from a rival tribe. Kale shakes his head, eyes fixed on the horizon. Raiders leave tracks. These people, it's like the earth swallowed them. You laugh nervously, hoping he's messing with you. But his face is stone cold serious. You think ghosting texts is rude? Try getting ghosted by an entire desert. The Anasazi's world wasn't just about survival, it was about balance. Archaeologists say they were obsessed with harmony between people, nature, and the cosmos. They aligned their buildings with the solstices, tracked the stars like ancient astronomers, and held rituals to keep the gods happy. But when the rain stopped, that balance shattered. The drought, starting around the 1200s, wasn't just a weather problem. It was a crisis of faith. Imagine your entire worldview, everything you've been taught to trust, falling apart because the sky refuses to cry. You think a bad Wi-Fi signal ruins your day? Try praying to gods who've gone silent while your crops turn to dust. By midday, your hands are raw, blisters forming where the stones have rubbed your skin to pulp. You pause to catch your breath, leaning against the wall, and notice something carved into the rock, a spiral, its lines twisting like a maze. You trace it with your finger, feeling the grooves, wondering what it means. Kale sees you and mutters, "It's a map of time," or a warning. You roll your eyes, thinking he's being dramatic, but then you remember Tawa's words about the earth's silence. You're starting to think these people saw signs everywhere. In the stars, the stones, even the cracks in the ground. You think your horoscope's vague? Try decoding a cosmic warning when your next meal depends on it. The work drags on, and the mood in the village grows darker. You overhear snippets of conversation, people arguing about whether to stay or leave. One woman, her voice sharp with desperation, says the gods demand a sacrifice. You freeze, hoping she means corn or feathers, but the way she grips her child's arm makes your stomach twist. You try to focus on stacking stones, but your mind's racing. Sacrifice? Disappearances? Shadows on cliffs? This isn't the cozy history lesson you signed up for. You think true crime podcasts are intense? Try living in a village where the crime scene might be your own backyard. As the sun dips low, painting the canyon red like spilled blood, you're sent to gather firewood. You trudge into the scrubland, the ground crunching underfoot, dotted with brittle bushes that snap at the slightest touch. The air's cooler now, but it carries a metallic tang, like rain that never comes. You pick up a few dry branches, their bark rough against your blistered hands. When you hear it, a low hum, like a chant, coming from a cluster of rocks nearby. Your first instinct is to run, but curiosity, that stupid human flaw, pulls you closer. You crouch behind a boulder, peering out, and see a group of figures in a circle, their faces hidden by hoods of woven fiber. They're swaying, their voices rising and falling, and in the center, there's something on the ground. You squint, heart pounding, but you can't make it out. Is it an offering? An animal? Or something else? You think sneaking a peek at your ex's Instagram is risky? Try spying on a ritual that might get you killed. You back away, careful not to snap a twig, and hightail it back to the village, branches forgotten. Your pulse is racing, your mouth dry as the desert itself. You don't tell anyone what you saw, not Tawa, not Kale. You're not sure if it's because you're scared or because you don't trust them. The village feels like a trap now, every shadow hiding a threat, every whisper a warning. You think office politics are cutthroat? Try living where distrust could literally cost you your life. That night, you sit by the fire, its warmth barely touching the cold knot in your chest. The flames cast long shadows, twisting on the walls like dancers in a nightmare. Tawa's there, staring into the fire, his knife still in hand. He doesn't speak, but you feel his eyes on you, like he knows you saw something. You want to ask him what's happening, but the words stick in your throat. Instead, you listen to the fire crackle, the wind moan, and the distant howl of a coyote, each sound tightening the noose around your nerves. You think doom-scrolling Twitter is stressful? Try waiting for a disaster you can't name. Archaeologists have theories about the Anasazi's collapse, drought, famine, conflict. But some findings are weirder. In certain sites, they've uncovered bones with cut marks, suggesting cannibalism. Was it desperation? Ritual? No one's sure. But the idea of eating your neighbor to survive isn't exactly a feel-good story. Other sites show evidence of mass exodus, whole villages emptied overnight, as if the people knew something we don't. You wonder if that humming ritual you saw was part of it, a last-ditch effort to fix a broken world, or something darker. You lie down, the ground hard against your back, and close your eyes, but sleep doesn't come. The air's thick with a smell of smoke and fear, and every sound feels like a countdown. You think you hear footsteps outside, soft but deliberate, but when you sit up, there's nothing. Just darkness. Just silence. Just the weight of a world that's falling apart. So, how long can you keep pretending everything's fine when the cracks are showing? Would you stay, hoping for a miracle, or run, knowing there's nowhere to go? Chew on that, because this story's not done, and trust me, it's only getting uglier. Dawn creeps over Chaco Canyon like a thief, barely lighting the sky before the heat starts clawing at your skin. You haven't slept, not really, just a few fitful moments stolen between the wind's howls and the gnawing dread in your gut. Your mouth tastes like ash, and your body feels like it's been dragged through a CrossFit session you didn't sign up for. The village is stirring, but it's a hollow kind of movement, like everyone's just going through the motions. You pull yourself up, the yucca mat beneath you frayed and useless, and step into the morning air. It's sharp with a scent of dry earth and something acrid, like burnt herbs from last night's ritual you wish you hadn't seen. You rub your eyes, trying to shake the image of those hooded figures, but it's stuck, like a song you hate looping in your head. You think waking up to a 6 a.m. alarm is brutal? Try waking up knowing today might be the day everything falls apart. You're assigned to the fields today, if you can even call them that. The ground is a patchwork of cracked dirt. The corn stalks, so brittle they crumble at a touch. You kneel, digging through the soil with a stick, hoping to find something, anything worth eating. The dust coats your hands, your throat, your lungs, like the desert's trying to claim you one breath at a time. Nearby, a woman named Sika works in silence, her fingers moving mechanically, pulling up roots that look more like twigs. Her face is drawn, cheekbones sharp under her skin, and you realize she's not much older than you. You try to make small talk, but your words feel heavy, like they're sinking into the ground with the rest of this dying place. She glances at you, her eyes dull, and mutters, "The earth's tired." "So are we." You nod, not knowing what else to say. You think a bad day at work is soul-crushing? Try digging for hope in a field that's already given up. The sun climbs higher, turning the canyon into an oven. Your skin burns, your lips crack, and every movement feels like wading through molasses. You hear a shout from the edge of the field, Kale, the guy from yesterday, waving you over. You trudge toward him, your feet dragging through the dirt, and find him staring at something half buried in the ground. It's a shard of pottery, its edges sharp, painted with black spirals that twist like the one you saw on the wall. Kale picks it up, turning it over in his hands, and says, "This isn't ours." You frown, asking what he means. He points to the design, his voice low. "It's from the south. Strangers have been here." Your stomach twists. Strangers? In a world where every drop of water is fought over, that's not a word you want to hear. You think getting a weird DM from a rando is unsettling? Try finding evidence of outsiders in a place where trust is as scarce as rain. You and Kale head back to the village, the pottery shard tucked into his belt. The air feels heavier now, like it's pressing down on your shoulders. You pass a group of elders arguing near the kiva, their voices sharp, hands gesturing wildly. One of them, a woman with braids streaked gray, points to the sky and says, "The stars have shifted. We've lost our way." You catch Tawa's eye in the crowd, but he looks away, his face unreadable. You want to ask about the shard, about the strangers, but the tension in the air stops you. It's like walking into a family fight where everyone's holding a knife. You think office gossip is toxic? Try living where every whispered rumor could spark a war. By afternoon, you're sent to help weave baskets, a task that sounds chill until you realize it's just you and a pile of sharp yucca fibers that shred your fingers like tiny razors. You sit with Sika again, her hands moving deftly despite the blood staining her fingertips. The air smells of dried grass and sweat, and the repetitive motion of weaving is almost hypnotic, lulling you into a false sense of calm. But then Sika starts talking, her voice barely above a whisper. She tells you about her brother, who went hunting 2 weeks ago and never came back. He wasn't the first, she says, her eyes fixed on the basket. And he won't be the last. You ask if she thinks it's raiders, but she shakes her head. It's not people. It's something else. Her words hang in the air, cold and heavy, like a fog you can't shake. You think creepy Reddit threads keep you up at night? Try hearing ghost stories from someone who's living them. The Anasazi's world was unraveling, and not just because of the drought. Archaeologists have found evidence of social collapse, villages abandoned, trade routes deserted, and signs of conflict. Some sites show burned structures. Others have human remains with marks of violence. The theory is that as resources dwindled, communities turned on each other, or outsiders saw weakness and struck. But there's more. Some researchers point to cultural shifts, rituals growing darker, more desperate. The kiva you saw last night, with its chanting figures, might have been one of those. The Anasazi were trying to fix their world, but at what cost? You think canceling a subscription because of a price hike is a tough choice? Try deciding whether to sacrifice your beliefs or your life. You keep weaving, but your mind's elsewhere, replaying Sika's words, Kele's warning, the elders fight. The basket in your hands is lopsided, useless, and you toss it aside, frustrated. Sika doesn't look up, just keeps working, like she's resigned to this endless grind. You want to scream, to demand answers, but who would listen? The village feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for the next disaster. You think a bad Tinder date is awkward? Try sitting in silence with someone who's lost everything and expects to lose more. As evening falls, you're called to a gathering at the kiva. The air's thick with the smell of smoke and sage, and the crowd is bigger than you expected. Their faces lit by flickering torchlight. Tawa stands at the center, his voice steady but heavy, like he's carrying the weight of the world. He speaks of the gods, of the earth's anger, of the need to act. You scan the crowd, spotting Kele, Sika, and the braided elder, their expressions unreadable. Tawa raises a hand, and the chanting starts again, low and rhythmic, vibrating through your bones. You feel trapped, like you're in a play you didn't audition for, and the script's about to take a dark turn. You think being stuck in a boring meeting is bad? Try being part of a ritual where you don't know the rules or the consequences. The chanting grows louder, and you notice something being passed through the crowd, a small bundle wrapped in cloth. It reaches Tawa, who unwraps it slowly, revealing a polished stone carved with spirals. The crowd gasps, and you feel a jolt of recognition. It's like the shard Kele found, but bigger, heavier, like it carries a story you're not sure you want to hear. Tawa holds it up, his eyes scanning the crowd, and says, "This is our past, and our warning." You want to ask what he means, but the air's too thick, the moment too fragile. You think cliffhangers in TV shows are frustrating? Try living one where the stakes are your survival. The ritual ends abruptly, and the crowd disperses, leaving you standing alone in the dark. The torchlight's gone, and the canyon feels vast, empty, like it's swallowing you whole. You head back to your room, the ground cold under your feet, the air heavy with the scent of smoke and fear. You lie down, but your mind's racing, piecing together fragments, disappearances, strangers, rituals, spirals. You think you hear footsteps again, closer this time. But when you look, there's nothing. Just the wind, or maybe something worse. Archaeologists say the Anasazi's collapse wasn't just environmental. Social bonds broke down, trust eroded, and fear took over. Some villages show signs of mass graves, others of sudden abandonment, as if people fled in the night. The spirals you've seen might have been symbols of time, migration, or warnings of danger. But no one knows for sure, and that's what makes this story so haunting. A puzzle with missing pieces, buried in the desert silence. You think losing your phone's a crisis? Try losing your entire world with no explanation. You close your eyes, but sleep's a distant dream. The air's thick, the darkness thicker, and every sound feels like a threat. You wonder how much longer you can stay here, how much longer anyone can. You think running out of coffee is a tragedy? Try running out of hope in a place where the gods have stopped listening. So what's it like to live on the edge of oblivion, knowing the next step could be your last? Would you cling to the familiar, or take your chances in the unknown? Ponder that, because this tale's not over, and the worst is still lurking. The morning air in Chaco Canyon bites like a betrayal, sharp and unforgiving, as you stumble out of your stone room. Your body's a map of aches, shoulders stiff from weaving, hands raw from digging, and a headache pulsing like a drumbeat you can't escape. Sleep was a cruel tease, slipping away every time you closed your eyes, chased off by the memory of last night's ritual, that carved spiral stone, and Tawa's cryptic words. The village is quieter today, the usual hum of activity replaced by a tense hush, like everyone's holding their breath for a storm they can't see. You smell smoke lingering in the air, mixed with a faint rot of something left too long in the sun. Your stomach twists, not just from hunger, but from the growing certainty that this place is rotting from the inside. You think waking up to a dead phone battery is a crisis? Try waking up to a world that feels like it's already given up on you. You're tasked with grinding corn today, a job that sounds simple until you're kneeling over a stone matate, scraping a mano back and forth until your arms scream. The corn is pitiful, kernels small and shriveled, like they're mocking your effort. Dust rises with every grind, coating your throat, making each breath a gritty chore. You're not alone. Sika's beside you, her movement slow but steady, her face a mask of resignation. You try to focus on the rhythm, but your mind keeps drifting to the spiral stone, the disappearances, the strangers Kayleigh mentioned. You glance at Sika, hoping for some reassurance, but she's staring at the ground, her lips moving silently, like she's praying or cursing. You think a boring workday drags? Try grinding your last scraps of food while wondering if you'll be next to vanish. The sun climbs, its heat pressing down like a physical weight, turning your tunic into a sweaty second skin. You pause to wipe your brow, and that's when you notice Kayleigh across the village, arguing with a man you don't recognize. The stranger's tall, his hair tied back with a strip of hide, and he's gesturing wildly, pointing toward the canyon's edge. Kayleigh's face is tight, his hand hovering near the knife at his belt. You can't hear their words, but the tension is thick, like static before a lightning strike. You nudge Sika, nodding toward them, and whisper, "Who's that?" She squints, then looks away, her voice barely audible. "He's from the north. Came last night." Your heart skips. Another outsider? In a world where trust is thinner than the corn you're grinding, that's a spark in a powder keg. You think a co-worker stealing your lunch is infuriating? Try living where a stranger's arrival could mean death. You keep grinding, but your eyes dart back to Kayleigh and the stranger. They've lowered their voices, but their body language screams trouble, shoulders squared, fists clenched. You wonder if this is about the pottery shard, the spirals, or something worse. The Anasazi weren't isolated. Archaeologists know they traded across vast distances, but trade routes also brought enemies. As the drought tightened its grip, rival groups likely eyed each other's dwindling resources. Some sites show evidence of raids, smashed skulls, burned homes. You imagine this northern stranger as a scout, sizing up your village's weaknesses. You think a shady Uber driver is sketchy? Try meeting someone who might be planning your village's end. By midday, your arms are numb, and the pile of ground corn is laughably small, barely enough for a meal. Sika stands, stretching, and you follow her to a shaded corner of the village to eat. The meal is a handful of cornmeal mixed with water, gritty and tasteless, like eating wet sand. You choke it down, your stomach still growling, and Sika watches you with something like pity. "You're not used to this," she says, not a question. You shrug, not wanting to admit how much you're struggling. She leans closer, her voice low. "They're planning something. The elders. Tawa, that northern man." Your pulse quickens. Planning what? Another ritual? A fight? or something that explains why people keep disappearing. You think overhearing office gossip is juicy? Try catching whispers of a plan that might decide who lives or dies. You're sent to fetch water next, a task you dread. The stream's even lower today, a sluggish trickle that smells like decay. You fill your jug, the weight pulling at your sore shoulders, and start back, the sun scorching your neck. On the way, you pass a small group gathered near a storage room, their voices hushed but urgent. You slow down, pretending to adjust your jug, and catch fragments of their talk, words like leave, danger, and tonight. Your skin prickles. Are they planning to flee? Or is this about the northern stranger? You think eavesdropping on a group chat is sneaky? Try spying on a conversation that could change everything, knowing one wrong move might get you caught. Back in the village, you find Kale alone, sharpening an arrowhead. His hands move with precision, but his jaw is tight, like he's chewing on something he can't spit out. You hesitate, then ask about the stranger. Kale's eyes flick up, sharp and wary, and for a moment, you think he won't answer. Then he says he claims he's here to trade, but his eyes are hungry, like a coyote's. You ask if he's dangerous, and Kale snorts a bitter sound. Everyone's dangerous when there's nothing left to lose. His words hit like a punch, and you realize how fragile this village is, held together by desperation and fear. You think a toxic friend group is draining? Try living in a community where trust is a luxury no one can afford. As evening falls, the village feels like it's teetering on a knife's edge. You're called to another gathering, this time outside the kiva, under a sky bruised with clouds that promise no rain. Tawa stands before the crowd, the northern stranger at his side, and the spiral stone from last night is in his hands again. The air's thick with the smell of sage and tension, and the crowd's murmurs are like a swarm of bees, ready to sting. Tawa raises the stone, his voice cutting through the noise. "This is our guide," he says, "and our burden." You don't know what that means, but the way the stranger's eyes glint makes your skin crawl. He steps forward, speaking of a place in the north, a valley where water still flows, where the gods haven't turned away. The crowd stirs, some nodding, others shouting in disbelief. You feel Sika's hand brush yours, her fingers cold, and you realize she's trembling. You think a heated Reddit thread is intense? Try standing in a crowd where hope and fear are about to collide. The gathering ends in chaos, voices rising, fists shaking. Tawa calls for silence, but it's like trying to calm a wildfire. You slip away, your heart pounding, and find a quiet corner to catch your breath. The canyon's walls loom around you, their shadows twisting like they're alive. You think about the stranger's words, a valley with water, a chance to live. But something about his voice, his eyes, feels wrong, like a scam email promising riches if you just click the link. You think falling for a phishing scam is embarrassing? Try staking your life on a stranger's promise in a world with no second chances. Archaeologists say the Anasazi's final years were marked by migration. Some groups left Chaco Canyon, blending into other tribes like the Hopi or Zuni, their descendants carrying fragments of their culture. But migration wasn't a road trip with a playlist and snacks. It meant abandoning everything: homes, ancestors' graves, the very land you believed held your gods. And not everyone made it. Some sites show signs of violence along migration routes, suggesting ambushes or betrayals. You wonder if the northern stranger's valley is real, or if it's a trap, a lure to pull your village into the jaws of something worse. Night falls, and you lie on your mat, the air heavy with the smell of smoke and unrest. The village is restless, voices drifting through the walls, footsteps echoing in the dark. You hear a soft knock at your doorframe, and your heart leaps. It's Kale, his face half lit by moonlight. "We're leaving," he whispers. Tonight, with or without Tawa. You stare at him, your mind racing. Leave? Now. With the stranger's words still ringing in your ears, the spiral stones wait in your memory, and the village fracturing around you? You think ghosting a group chat is bold? Try abandoning your home in the dead of night, not knowing if you'll survive the journey. So, what do you do when the ground's crumbling beneath you? Stay with the devil you know, or follow a whisper of hope into the dark? Think about it, because this story's far from done, and the shadows are closing in. So, you're still here with me, huh? Take a moment to settle in, maybe stretch a bit, and let your mind unwind. Because where we're headed next, well, it's a place full of new twists and quiet surprises. Ready to keep going? Then let's ease into the next chapter of our story. The night is black as ink, the kind of dark that swallows sound and smothers hope. You're crouched in your stone room, heart hammering, as Kayle's words echo in your head. We're leaving. Tonight. His silhouette lingers in the doorway, barely visible against the faint moonlight, his breath quick and uneven. You can smell the dust on him, mixed with the sharp tang of fear, and your own hands tremble as you clutch the edge of your yucca mat. The village outside is a restless beast, whispers, footsteps, the occasional clatter of something being packed or dropped. You think sneaking out of a party without saying goodbye is nerve-wracking? Try slipping away from a dying village where every shadow might be an enemy. You nod to Kayle, not trusting your voice, and grab what little you own, a small pouch of cornmeal, a flint knife, a scrap of woven cloth. It's pitiful, really, your whole life reduced to a handful of things that wouldn't even fill a backpack. Kayle motions for you to follow, and you step into the night, the cold biting your bare feet like a warning. The canyon walls loom around you, their jagged edges cutting into the starry sky like teeth. You move quickly, sticking to the shadows, avoiding the glow of dying fires. You pass Sika's room, its doorway dark, and wonder if she's coming too. You want to check, but Kayle's hand on your arm pulls you forward, urgent and unyielding. You think ghosting a text thread feels guilty? Try leaving behind someone who might not survive without you. The group is small, Kayle, 2 other men you vaguely recognize, and a woman with a scarf wrapped tight around her face. No one speaks, their eyes darting to every rustle in the dark. The air smells of dry sage and something metallic, like blood or rust, and you try not to think about what it means. Kayle leads you past the village's edge, where the last stone walls give way to open desert. The ground is rough, studded with rocks that stab your soles, and the wind carries a low moan, like the canyon itself is grieving. You glance back just once and see the faint outline of the village, its fires flickering like dying stars. You think quitting a job without notice is bold? Try walking away from the only home you've ever known, with no promise of tomorrow. The path is treacherous, winding through narrow gullies and over crumbling ledges. You stumble, catching yourself on a jagged rock that slices your palm. The pain is sharp, but you bite your lip and keep moving, blood dripping into the dirt. Kayle whispers to stay close, his voice taut, like he's expecting trouble. You wonder about the northern stranger, his talk of a lush valley, and whether Kayle trusts him or if this is a desperate gamble. Archaeologists say the Anasazi migrated in waves during the 13th century, abandoning Chaco Canyon for places like Mesa Verde or the Rio Grande. But migration wasn't a leisurely road trip. It was a gauntlet of starvation, exposure, and ambushes. You imagine raiders hiding in the shadows, waiting for stragglers like you. You think a bad Uber ride is stressful? Try trekking through a desert where every step could be your last. Hours pass, and your legs burn, your throat parched despite the small sip of water Kayle rationed. The group moves in silence. The only sounds your ragged breaths and the crunch of dirt underfoot. The woman with the scarf stumbles, and one of the men catches her, his touch gentle but hurried. You catch a glimpse of her face, young, maybe younger than you, her eyes wide with fear. You wonder who she's leaving behind, what she's running from. The Anasazi's collapse wasn't just environmental, it was deeply personal. Families split, communities fractured, and trust eroded as survival trumped loyalty. You think cutting off a toxic friend is hard? Try abandoning your kin because staying means death. The sky begins to lighten, a thin gray line on the horizon, but it brings no warmth. You're climbing now, up a rocky slope that tears at your hands and knees. The air is thinner, sharper, smelling of pine and something faintly sweet, like rotting fruit. Kale stops suddenly, raising a hand, and you freeze, heart pounding. He points to the ground, a footprint, fresh, too large to be one of yours. Your stomach drops. Someone's nearby, and it's not your group. Kale exchanges a look with the others, and the woman with the scarf grips her knife tighter. You think spotting a creepy follower on social media is unnerving? Try finding proof you're being hunted in a desert with nowhere to hide. You move faster now, the group's pace frantic, scrambling over rocks and through thorny bushes that snag your clothes. Your lungs burn, each breath a struggle, and the cut on your palm throbs, blood mixing with sweat. You hear something, a faint crunch, like footsteps trailing behind. You glance back, but the dawn's half-light plays tricks, turning every shadow into a threat. Kale hisses to keep moving, but fear is a weight, slowing your steps. You think a jump scare in a horror game is bad? Try running from something you can't see, knowing it's gaining on you. The group reaches a plateau, a flat expanse of stone dotted with scrub. Kale signals to stop, and you collapse, gasping, your legs jelly. The air's cooler here, but it carries a strange smell, smoke, but not the comforting kind from a campfire. It's acrid, like something unnatural's burning. You scan the horizon and see it, a thin plume of smoke rising from a distant ridge. Kale curses under his breath, and the others exchange worried glances. Another village, the woman whispers, her voice trembling. Kale shakes his head. Or what's left of one. Your skin crawls. Archaeologists have found burned sites across the southwest, some with signs of violence, charred beams, scattered bones. You wonder if that smoke is a warning, a beacon, or a trap. You think a cryptic text from an ex is confusing? Try reading the signs of a world that's eating itself alive. You're given a moment to rest, but it's no relief. The group huddles, whispering about the footprint, the smoke, the northern stranger's valley. The two men argue. One wants to turn back, the other insists on pushing forward. Kale stays quiet, his eyes fixed on the smoke, like he's trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. You pull out your pouch of cornmeal, offering it to the woman, who takes a pinch with a grateful nod. Her hands shake, and you notice a spiral tattoo on her wrist, faint but unmistakable. You want to ask about it, but the words die in your throat. The Anasazi use spirals to mark time, seasons, or migrations, but some scholars think they were warnings, etched by those who'd seen too much. You think a vague Instagram story is intriguing? Try decoding a symbol that might mean salvation or doom. The group moves again, descending into a narrow canyon where the walls close in, their surfaces etched with faint carvings. More spirals, lines, and shapes you don't understand. The air's damp here, heavy with the smell of moss and something stale, like old bones. Your footsteps echo, too loud in the stillness, and you feel exposed, like the canyon's watching you. Kale leads, his knife drawn, and you notice he's checking the ground for more footprints. You want to believe you're safe, that the valley's real, but doubt gnaws at you. What if Kale's wrong? What if the stranger lied? You think second-guessing a friend's advice is tough? Try betting your life on a plan with no guarantees. As noon approaches, the canyon opens into a wider valley, the ground softer, dotted with stunted trees. You see signs of life, rabbit tracks, a scrap of woven cloth caught on a branch, but it's not comforting. It's too quiet, like the world's holding its breath. Kayleigh stops, kneeling to examine something in the dirt. You peer over his shoulder and see it, a broken arrow, its tip stained dark. Your chest tightens. Recent, Kayleigh mutters, his voice grim. The woman gasps, and the men start scanning the trees, hands on their weapons. You think a plot twist in a movie is shocking? Try finding proof that danger's closer than you thought, with no way to turn back. So, how do you keep moving when every sign screams to run? Do you trust the path ahead or the fear in your gut? Hold that thought, because this journey's not over, and the darkness is only getting thicker. The valley stretches before you, a deceptive patchwork of scrub and shadow. But the broken arrow in Kayleigh's hand burns in your memory like a brand. Your heart's still racing, each beat a reminder of how close danger feels, though the canyon around you is eerily still. The air carries a faint whiff of smoke, not the comforting kind from a hearth, but something sharp and wrong, like charred bone. Your feet ache, blistered and raw from the trek, and the cut on your palm throbs, crusted with dirt and blood. The group huddles close, their faces tight, Kayleigh's jaw clenched, the woman's scarf slipping to reveal her trembling lips, the two men scanning the horizon like cornered animals. You grip your flint knife, its weight a small anchor in a world that's unraveling. You think a flat tire on a road trip is a hassle? Try standing in a desert, knowing something's hunting you, and there's no AAA to call. Kayleigh tosses the arrow aside and motions to keep moving, his voice a low growl. We don't stop. Not now. You want to argue, to demand a plan, but the look in his eyes, hard, unyielding, silences you. You fall in line, the group weaving through stunted trees, their branches clawing at your tunic like skeletal hands. The ground is uneven, littered with rocks and dry roots that snag your feet, threatening to send you sprawling. Every rustle in the brush, every snap of a twig, makes your skin prickle. You glance at the woman, hoping for a shred of reassurance, but her eyes are fixed on the ground, her spiral tattoo catching the dim light. You think a creepy noise in your apartment at night is unsettling? Try hearing it in a place where no one's coming to save you. The sun is high now, its heat a relentless fist, pressing sweat into your eyes and turning your mouth to dust. You ration another sip from your water jug, the liquid warm and gritty, barely easing the ache in your throat. Kayleigh leads you toward a cluster of low cliffs, their faces pocked with shallow caves that look like empty eyes. He says they'll offer shelter, a place to rest before nightfall, but the idea of stopping feels like tempting fate. You pass a pile of stones unnaturally stacked, and your stomach twists. It's not random, a marker, maybe a warning. Kayleigh notices it too, his hand tightening on his knife, but he says nothing. Archaeologists have found such cairns across Anasazi lands, sometimes marking trails, sometimes graves. You wonder what this one means, and if you're walking into someone else's story. You think a vague, do not enter sign is ominous? Try reading the desert's signals when your life depends on it. Inside the largest cave, the air is cooler but heavy, smelling of damp stone and something faintly sour, like old blood. You collapse against the wall, your legs trembling, and the group spreads out, checking the space for signs of life or death. The woman, whose name you learn is Loma, starts a small fire, her hands steady despite the fear in her eyes. The two men, brothers named Sin and Yuma, argue in hushed tones about whether to scout ahead or stay hidden. Kayleigh ignores them, kneeling to examine the cave floor, his fingers tracing faint scratches, more spirals, etched into the stone. Your breath catches. They're everywhere. These damn symbols, like a code you're too dumb to crack. You think a cryptic emoji in a text is annoying? Try living with a mystery that might be your only warning. Loma passes you a scrap of dried meat, tough as leather and tasteless, but you chew it gratefully, your stomach growling like an angry dog. She sits beside you, her scarf now loose around her shoulders, revealing the spiral tattoo in full. You muster the courage to ask about it, your voice barely above a whisper. She hesitates, then says, "It's a promise. To the ones who came before." Her words are vague, but the weight behind them makes you shiver. You press further, asking if it's about the gods, the migrations, or something else. She looks away, her fingers brushing the tattoo. "It's about surviving," she says finally, "even when the world wants you gone." You nod, not fully understanding, but feeling the truth in her voice. You think a motivational quote on Instagram is deep? Try hearing one from someone who's lived it. The fire crackles, casting shadows that dance on the cave walls, turning the spirals into writhing shapes. Kale stands, his face grim, and says he's found something. A pile of bones in the back of the cave, human, too fresh to be ancient. Your stomach lurches, and Sin curses, his voice echoing too loudly. Yuma grabs his arm, hissing to be quiet, but the damage is done. You hear it, a faint crunch outside, like someone stepping on gravel. Kale douses the fire, plunging the cave into darkness, and you all freeze, your breath loud in your ears. The silence stretches, taut as a bowstring, and you clutch your knife, its blade cold against your palm. You think a power outage during a Netflix binge is bad? Try hiding in a cave, knowing something's outside, and your only light is gone. Minutes crawl by, each one an eternity, until Kale signals to move. You creep toward the cave's mouth, your heart pounding so hard you're sure it'll give you away. The valley outside is bathed in afternoon light, deceptively calm, but you spot movement, a shadow flitting between trees, too quick to be a trick of the eye. Kale whispers to stay low, and you crawl back into the cave, your knees scraping the stone. Loma's breathing is ragged, and Sin's muttering prayers under his breath, words you don't understand but feel in your bones. You think a jump scare in a haunted house is terrifying? Try waiting for a real threat to find you, with no exit strategy. Archaeologists say the Anasazi's final days were marked by paranoia and violence. Some sites show evidence of defensive walls, others of massacres. Entire families wiped out, their homes burned. The bones Kale found could be victims of raiders, deserters, or something worse. Some scholars argue the Anasazi turned to extreme rituals, even cannibalism, as desperation took hold. You wonder if those spirals are tied to it, a plea for salvation, or a mark of something darker. You think a true crime documentary is chilling? Try living in a world where the crime scene might be your next stop. Kale decides to wait until nightfall, hoping darkness will hide your escape. You huddle in the cave, the air thick with fear and the lingering smell of those bones. Loma shares her water, a small act of kindness that feels like a lifeline. You ask her about the northern stranger, if she trusts his talk of a valley. She shrugs, her eyes distant. "Hope's a dangerous thing," she says. "It makes you move, but it doesn't keep you safe." Her words hit hard, and you realize how much you've been clinging to the idea of a better place, even if it's a lie. You think chasing a dream job is risky? Try chasing a myth when the alternative is death. As night falls, the group prepares to move. Kale scouts the cave's entrance, his movements silent, like he's part of the shadows. He returns, his face unreadable, and says the path looks clear, for now. You pack up, your hands shaking, and follow him into the dark, the valley a maze of moonlight and menace. The air's cold, sharp with the scent of pine and smoke, and every step feels like a gamble. You stay close to Loma, her presence a small comfort, though her spiral tattoo glows faintly in your mind, a reminder of secrets you don't understand. The group moves quickly, skirting the valley's edge, where cliffs offer some cover. You hear nothing but your own breathing and the soft crunch of dirt, but the silence is worse than noise. It's the kind that hides predators. You think about the northern stranger, his promise of water, and wonder if Kayle's leading you to him or away. You want to ask, but fear keeps your mouth shut. You think second-guessing a group project is stressful? Try following a leader when every choice could be your last. Hours later, you reach a narrow pass, its walls towering like sentinels. Kayle stops, his hand raised, and you see it, a faint glow ahead, like a fire. Your heart leaps, torn between hope and dread. Is it a village, raiders, or something else? Kayle whispers to stay back, but Loma steps forward, her eyes fixed on the light. It's a sign, she says, her voice steady for the first time. You want to believe her, but the spirals, the bones, the arrow, they're all screaming something different. You think a cliffhanger in a book is maddening? Try standing at a crossroads where the wrong turn could end you. So, what do you do when the light ahead could be salvation or a snare? Do you follow hope or listen to the fear clawing at your chest? Chew on that, because this tale's not done, and the night's about to get darker. The faint glow ahead flickers like a lure, pulling your eyes through the dark pass where the canyon walls press close. Their rough surfaces grazing your shoulders as you move. Your breath catches, sharp and shallow, the cold air biting your lungs with a mix of pine and that ever-present smoke, now stronger, curling into your nose like a warning. Loma's words, it's a sign, hang heavy, but Kayle's silence is louder, his knife glinting in the moonlight as he leads the group forward, each step deliberate, like he's walking on glass. Your legs are lead, your blistered feet screaming with every crunch of gravel, and the cut on your palm pulses, a reminder of how fragile you are in this unforgiving world. The others, Sin, Yuma, and Loma, move close, their shadows blending into yours, a fragile knot of survivors bound by fear and a shred of hope. You think spotting a distant campfire on a camping trip is exciting? Try seeing one in a desert where it could mean salvation or a slaughter. Kayle raises a hand, signaling to slow, and you crouch behind a jagged boulder, its surface cold and gritty against your skin. The glow is clearer now, a fire, small but steady, tucked against a cliff face maybe 100 yards away. You squint, trying to make out shapes, but the darkness is thick, broken only by the fire's dance. You hear faint sounds, murmurs, maybe voices, or just the wind playing tricks. Loma's beside you, her breath uneven, her spiral tattoo a faint outline in the moonlight. She's staring at the fire like it's calling her name, and you want to grab her, to tell her to snap out of it. But your own heart's pounding too hard to form words. You think a cryptic notification on your phone is intriguing? Try deciphering a fire's meaning, when it could be your last chance or your final mistake. Kayle whispers to stay put, his voice barely audible, and creeps forward, blending into the shadows like he was born for this. You wait, the seconds stretching into knives, each one cutting deeper into your nerves. The air smells sharper now, the smoke mixed with something sickly sweet, like rotting meat. Your stomach churns, and you grip your flint knife, its weight a small comfort against the unknown. Sin shifts beside you, muttering under his breath, his words a jumble of prayers or curses. Yuma nudges him to shut up, but the tension's electric, like a wire about to snap. You think waiting for a late friend at a bar is annoying? Try waiting in the dark, knowing one wrong move could end you all. Kayle returns, his face grim, and motions for the group to follow. It's a camp, he says, his voice low. Small. Maybe 10 people. They're not ours. your heart sinks. Not yours. Strangers. Then, like the Northern Man, or worse, raiders. Archaeologists say the Anasazi faced increasing threats as their world collapsed, with rival groups attacking weakened villages for food, water, or revenge. Some sites show evidence of sudden violence, skeletons with crushed skulls, homes burned to ash. You imagine the camp ahead as a trap, its fire a bait for desperate wanderers like you. You think a shady pop-up ad is suspicious? Try approaching a camp that might want your blood instead of your clicks. You move closer, staying low, the ground rough under your hands and knees. The fire's light reveals more, tents of hide and brush, a few figures moving around. Their silhouettes lean and sharp, like predators. You catch a whiff of roasting meat, and your mouth waters despite the fear, your hunger a traitor that doesn't care about danger. Kale leads you to a cluster of rocks, offering cover, and you peer out, trying to gauge the camp's mood. The voices are clearer now, low and rhythmic, like a chant or a story being told. One figure stands, holding something, a staff, maybe, or a weapon. Its tip catching the firelight. You think stumbling on a stranger's party is awkward? Try crashing one where you're not sure if you're a guest or a target. Loma tugs your arm, her eyes wide, and points to a pile near the camp's edge. It's hard to see, but it looks like bones. Not animal bones, either. Too large, too human. Your throat tightens, and you remember the cave, the fresh remains Kale found. You want to believe it's a coincidence, but the desert's teaching you there's no such thing. Some scholars argue the Anasazi turned to cannibalism in their darkest days, driven by starvation or ritual. The evidence is sparse but chilling, cut marks on bones, signs of cooking. You try to push the thought away, but it clings, a shadow you can't shake. You think a gruesome true crime podcast is disturbing? Try staring at proof that survival might mean eating your own. Scramble, your legs pumping, the ground a blur of rocks and thorns that tear at your skin. Loma's beside you, her scarf gone, her face pale but fierce. Yuma drags Sin, blood trailing behind, a beacon for whoever's chasing. You think a car chase in an action movie is intense? Try running for your life with no finish line in sight. The path narrows, forcing you single file, the walls so close you can't see the sky. Your lungs burn, each breath a knife, and the footsteps behind grow louder, joined by shouts in a language you don't know. Kale leads you up a steep incline, your hands clawing at the rock, nails splitting as you climb. You reach a ledge wide enough to pause, and Kale shoves Sin against the wall, checking his wound. It's bad, blood soaks his leg, and he's pale, his eyes glassy. Loma tears her cloth into strips, binding the injury, but her hands shake, and you see the spiral tattoo again, glowing like a brand. You think a first aid kit in your car is a lifesaver? Try patching someone up while death's knocking. The pursuers are close. You hear rocks skittering below, voices sharp with intent. Kale scans the ledge, spotting a narrow path winding higher, barely visible in the moonlight. Go, he hisses, helping Yuma lift Sin. You follow, your body screaming, fear drowning out the pain. The path is treacherous, crumbling under your weight, and you hug the cliff, your fingers digging into cracks. Loma's behind you, her breath ragged, and you want to tell her it'll be okay, but the lice sticks in your throat. You think a high-stakes video game boss fight is stressful? Try climbing a cliff with killers on your tail and a friend bleeding out. You reach a wider plateau, the air colder, sharper, smelling of dust and distant rain that never falls. Kale sets Sin down, and you collapse, gasping, your vision swimming. The shouts below fade, but you know they're still coming, tracking the blood, the footprints, the desperation you can't hide. Loma kneels beside Sin, whispering something, her hand on his forehead like a mother soothing a child. Yuma paces, his knife drawn, muttering about fighting if they're caught. Kayle's silent, his eyes on the horizon, where the fire's glow is just a memory. You think a group project falling apart is chaotic? Try holding a team together when survival's the only goal. Archaeologists say the Anasazi's migrations were desperate, often deadly. Some groups reached new homes, blending into tribes like the Hopi, but others vanished, lost to the desert or its dangers. The bones, the traps, the burned camps, they paint a picture of a world where trust was a luxury, and betrayal was a survival tactic. You wonder if the camp below was a rogue group, survivors like you, or something darker, driven by hunger or madness. The spirals, the tattoos, the stones, they're pieces of a puzzle you can't solve, but they're all screaming the same thing: nothing safe. Sin groans, pulling you back, and you see the fear in his eyes, not just for himself, but for all of you. Loma's still whispering, her voice a soft anchor, but you catch the words promise and survive, and you wonder if her tattoo holds more than she said. Kayle finally speaks, his voice low. We can't stay. They'll find us. He points to the path, winding into the dark, and you know he's right, but the weight of it, leaving Sin, pushing on, facing whatever's next, crushes you. You think abandoning a failing startup is tough? Try abandoning hope in a world that's already abandoned you. You stand, your body protesting, and help lift Sin, his weight heavy against you. The group moves, slower now, the path a faint thread through the night. The air's thick, the silence heavier, and every step feels like a countdown. You glance at Loma, her face set, her spiral a silent vow. You want to believe you'll make it, that the valley's real, but the desert's taught you one truth: nothing's promised. So, how do you keep going when every step feels like a trap? Do you cling to the group, or start planning your own escape? Hold that thought, because this story's not over, and the night's claws are sharpening. The path stretches into the night, a cruel ribbon of dirt and stone that seems to mock your every step. Your arms burn from helping carry Sin, his weight sagging against you and Yuma, his shallow breaths a constant reminder of how close he is to slipping away. The air is sharp, laced with the faint sting of smoke and the cold bite of altitude, cutting through your tattered tunic like a blade. Loma walks ahead, her silhouette rigid, the spiral tattoo on her wrist catching stray moonlight like a warning you still don't understand. Kayle leads, his knife drawn, his eyes scanning the shadows as if he expects them to come alive. The canyon walls have fallen away, leaving you exposed on a high plateau where the wind howls, tugging at your clothes and whispering of things best left forgotten. You think hiking with a heavy backpack is exhausting? Try hauling a dying man through a desert where every shadow could be your end. Sin's blood has soaked through the makeshift bandage, leaving a dark trail that glints in the moonlight, a beacon for whatever's behind you. You hear nothing, no shouts, no footsteps, but the silence is worse, heavy with the promise of pursuit. Your own body is a traitor, legs trembling, lungs gasping, the cut on your palm throbbing like it's infected. You want to stop, to collapse, and let the world deal with itself. But Kayle's pace is relentless. His focus a lifeline you cling to even as doubt gnaws at your gut. Is he leading you to the northern stranger's valley, or just deeper into the jaws of the desert? You think second-guessing a road trip playlist is frustrating? Try questioning a leader when your survival hangs on his choices. The plateau slopes downward, the ground softening into sandy patches that suck at your feet, slowing your steps. You pass a cluster of twisted trees, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching for the stars. Loma pauses, kneeling to touch the ground, and you see it, a faint carving in the dirt, another spiral, half erased by wind. She whispers something, too low to catch, and Kayle snaps at her to keep moving. Her eyes meet yours, fierce and unreadable, and you wonder what she knows, what she's not saying. Archaeologists say spirals were sacred to the Anasazi, marking cycles of time, migration routes, or warnings of danger. But these spirals feel personal, like they're chasing you, branding your path with a message you're too scared to read. You think a vague fortune cookie prophecy is cryptic? Try walking a trail where every sign could mean death. You shift Sin's weight, your shoulder screaming, and Yuma grunts, his face slick with sweat despite the cold. He's been quiet since the cave, but you see the strain in his eyes, the way he keeps glancing at his brother, willing him to hold on. Sin's barely conscious, his head lolling, his lips cracked and bloodless. You want to say something, to offer hope, but the words feel like lies. The Anasazi faced countless losses, families torn apart, communities abandoned, and the stories of their migrations are littered with those who didn't make it. You imagined Sin's fate, left behind in the dirt, his bones another mystery for some future scholar to ponder. You think losing a friend to a falling out is painful? Try watching one fade with no way to save them. Kale stops abruptly, his hand raised, and you freeze, your heart lurching. He points to a faint glow ahead, not a fire, but something softer, like starlight reflecting off water. Your breath catches. Water? In this forsaken place? Loma's eyes widen, and even Yuma looks up, hope flickering in his face. Kale's cautious, his knife still drawn, and he motions to approach slowly. You eased Sin down, propping him against a rock, and follow, your legs shaky with exhaustion, and a spark of something you haven't felt in days. Possibility. The glow grows brighter, revealing a small spring, its surface shimmering in a shallow basin carved into the stone. You think finding a gas station after hours on a road trip is a relief? Try stumbling on water when you're half dead and hunted. You kneel, cupping the water in your hands. Its cold shock a jolt to your system. It tastes clean, almost sweet, a stark contrast to the gritty sludge you've been choking down. Loma drinks too, her movements reverent, like she's thanking the earth itself. Kale keeps watch, his eyes scanning the darkness, while Yuma helps Sin sip, the water bringing a faint flush to his ashen face. For a moment, you feel human again, the weight of the desert lifting just enough to let you breathe. But then you see it, a pile of stones near the spring, stacked like the marker you passed before, and beside it, a broken sandal, its weave eerily familiar. Your stomach twists. Someone's been here, and recently. You think a last seen timestamp on a friend's profile is creepy? Try finding proof you're not alone in a place you desperately need to be safe. Kale notices the sandal too, his jaw tightening, and he kicks it away, muttering about carelessness. Loma's quiet, her fingers brushing her tattoo, and you wonder if she recognizes it, if it's tied to her promise. You want to ask, but the moment's fragile, and Sin's groan pulls you back. His wound's worse, the bandage soaked through, and Yuma's voice cracks as he begs Kale to rest here, just for a while. Kale hesitates, then nods, but his eyes never leave the horizon. You sit, the spring's gentle ripple, a cruel contrast to the tension coiling in your chest. You think a tense group hangout is uncomfortable? Try resting in a haven that feels like a trap. The night deepens, the stars sharp and unyielding, their light casting long shadows that twist like spirits. You wrap your arms around yourself, the cold seeping into your bones, and listen to the spring's soft gurgle, a sound that should be soothing but feels like a countdown. Loma sits beside you, her scarf loose, her face softened by the water's glow. She speaks, her voice low, telling you of her mother, who taught her the spirals, who said they were paths to the ancestors, to safety. She didn't make it, Loma says, her eyes distant. But she said to keep going, no matter what. You nod, feeling the weight of her loss, and wonder if you'd have the strength to carry on like she has. You think a heartfelt DM is moving? Try hearing a story of survival from someone who's living it. Kale interrupts, his voice sharp, saying you need to move before dawn. Sin's stable barely, but the spring's too exposed. The sandal and stones, proof you're not alone. You help lift Sin, his weight heavier now, and follow Kale along the plateau's edge. The spring fading behind you like a dream you can't keep. The path narrows, winding through a maze of boulders, their surfaces etched with faint spirals that seem to pulse in the moonlight. Your skin crawls, the symbols a constant reminder of something you're missing, something vital. Archaeologists debate the spirals' meaning, maps, prayers, or warnings, but their presence in migration routes suggests they guided the Anasazi or marked dangers they couldn't outrun. You think a confusing GPS route is maddening? Try following signs that could lead to life or death. Hours pass, the night blurring into a haze of pain and fear. You hear something, a faint crunch like footsteps, but when you look, there's nothing, just the wind and your own paranoia. Kale's pace quickens, his knife flashing as he scans the dark. Loma's beside you, her breath steady but her eyes wild, and you realize she's clutching a small stone, its surface carved with a spiral. You want to ask where she got it, but a shout from Yuma stops you. He's pointing to Sin, who's slumped, his breathing ragged, blood pooling beneath him. Kale kneels, checking the wound, and his face says it all. Sin's not making it. Yuma's voice breaks, pleading, but Kale's firm, saying they can't stop. You think a breakup text is gut-wrenching? Try watching a brother beg for a miracle that won't come. You move again, Sin's weight crushing, your body screaming for rest. The path opens into a wide basin, the ground soft, dotted with low shrubs. In the distance, you see shapes, ruins, maybe, or another camp. Their outlines vague in the pre-dawn gray. Kale slows, his eyes narrowing, and you feel it too, a shift in the air, like the desert's holding its breath. Loma grips her stone tighter, her lips moving silently, and you wonder if she's praying or preparing. The ruins grow clearer, stone walls, collapsed roofs, a ghost of a village that feels too familiar. Your heart sinks. Is this the valley, or just another grave? You think a plot twist in a series finale is shocking? Try reaching a destination that might be your tomb. So, what do you do when the end feels closer than the beginning? Do you push forward, chasing a fading hope, or brace for the truth you've been running from? Hold that thought, because this story's not done, and the desert secrets are sharpening their teeth. The pre-dawn gray clings to the basin like a shroud, softening the jagged outlines of the ruins ahead, crumbled stone walls, collapsed roofs, a ghost of a village that feels like a mirror to the one you fled. Your journey through Chaco Canyon has been a gauntlet of fear and fleeting hope. The drought that choked your fields, the whispers of disappearances, the spirals etched into stone, and the desperate flight with Kale, Loma, Sin, and Yuma. You've carried Sin's fading weight, dodged unseen pursuers, and chased the northern stranger's promise of a valley where water flows and gods still listen. Now, standing on the edge of this silent ruin, your body is a wreck, blistered feet, throbbing palm, lungs raw from the desert's dust. The air smells of dry earth and faint decay, and the wind carries a low moan, as if the ruins themselves are grieving. You think reaching the end of a long book is bittersweet. Try standing at what might be your journey's end, unsure if it's salvation or a grave. Kale pauses, his knife still drawn, his eyes scanning the ruins for movement. Loma's beside you, her spiral-carved stone clutched tight, her face a mix of resolve and dread. Yuma supports Sin, whose breaths are shallow, his wound a dark stain against the pale dawn. The ruins are eerily quiet, no fires, no voices, just the soft rustle of wind through broken walls. You want to believe this is the valley, the haven you bled for, But the deserts taught you to trust nothing. Kale signals to move forward, his steps cautious, and you follow, your heart a drumbeat in your chest. The ground is soft, littered with pottery shards and charred wood, remnants of a life abandoned. You think walking through an empty house is spooky? Try treading through a village that feels like it's watching you. As you enter the ruins, the walls close in, their surfaces etched with familiar spirals, their curves twisting like the ones that haunted your path. Loma's breath catches, and she touches one, her fingers trembling. "They were here," she whispers, her voice heavy with meaning you don't fully grasp. You want to ask about her tattoo, her promise, but Kale's sharp gesture silences you. He points to a low structure, its roof intact, and you slip inside, the air cool and thick with a smell of dust and old straw. You eased Sin down, his groan barely audible, and Yuma kneels beside him, his face crumpling with grief. Kale checks the entrance, his knife ready, while Loma scans the room, her eyes lingering on a pile of woven mats, as if expecting answers. You think finding an old photo in a drawer is nostalgic? Try searching a ruin for clues to your survival. The structure is small, its walls scarred with more spirals, some painted red, others scratched deep. You notice a clay jug in the corner unbroken, and your heart leaps. Water? You crawl to it, your hands shaking, and tip it gently. A trickle spills out clear and cold, and you laugh, a brittle sound that echoes in the silence. Loma joins you, drinking greedily, and you pass the jug to Yuma, who wets Sin's lips. For a moment, the water is everything, a spark of life in a world that's tried to snuff you out. But then Kale hisses from the entrance, his voice urgent. Someone's coming. Your stomach drops, the jug slipping from your hands, shattering on the stone. You think a loud noise at a quiet party is embarrassing? Try breaking the silence when you're hiding from death. You scramble to the back of the room, pressing against the wall, your knife clutched tight. Footsteps crunch outside, slow and deliberate, and you hear voices, low guttural, not your language. Kale's eyes meet yours, a silent command to stay still, but Loma's trembling, her stone pressed to her chest like a talisman. Yuma holds Sin, his face a mask of defiance, though his hands shake. The footsteps stop, and you hold your breath, the air thick with fear and the faint scent of smoke. You think waiting for a jump scare in a horror movie is tense? Try waiting for strangers to decide your fate in a ruin where there's nowhere to run. The voices fade, the footsteps retreating, and you exhale, your body sagging. Kale checks the entrance, then nods, but his face is grim. "They'll be back," he says, his voice flat. You look at Sin, barely alive, and Yuma's pleading eyes, and you know you can't stay. Loma stands, her stone still in hand, and says, "This isn't the valley, but it's close." Her certainty surprises you, and you ask how she knows. She touches her tattoo, her voice steady. "The spirals lead us. They always have." You want to believe her, but the ruins, the water, the voices, they're a puzzle with too many pieces missing. You think a cliffhanger season finale is maddening? Try living one where the next episode might never come. Kale decides to move at first light, hoping to find the valley before Sin's time runs out. You rest fitfully, the cold stone against your back, the spirals on the walls seeming to shift in the dark. Loma sits beside you, her stone now tucked away, and tells you of her mother's stories. Tales of a place where the earth still sings, where the Anasazi could start again. "We're not the first," she says, "and we won't be the last." Her words are a fragile thread, tying you to a past you never knew and a future you can't see. Archaeologists say some Anasazi reached new homes, their descendants weaving their legacy into tribes like the Hopi and Zuni, but many were lost, their stories buried in the desert silence. You wonder if you'll be one of them, a footnote in a history no one will read. Dawn breaks, pale and unforgiving, and you help carry sin. His weight a crushing reminder of what's at stake. The ruins fade behind you as Kale leads you through a narrow pass, the air warming, the smell of sage and water faint but growing. You climb a rise, your body screaming, and then you see it, a valley, green with patches of grass, a stream glinting like a promise. Your heart leaps, but Kale's cautious, his eyes scanning for traps. Loma smiles, a rare, fleeting thing, and whispers, "We made it." But as you descend, you see shapes, people, maybe, or ruins, or both, and your hope falters. Is this the valley or another mirage? You think reaching a vacation destination is thrilling? Try finding a haven that might already be claimed. You never learn the full truth. The valley could be salvation, a new home where the spirals lead to life, or it could be another ruin, waiting to swallow you like Chaco Canyon did its people. The Anasazi vanished, their cities empty, their stories fragmented, leaving only questions etched in stone. You stand at the edge of the valley, Sin's breath fading, Loma's hand on your arm, Kale's knife still drawn, and you realize some endings aren't answers, they're choices. You choose to step forward into the unknown because stopping means giving up. You think finishing a long game is satisfying? Try ending a journey where survival is the only prize. Thank you truly for walking with me through every twist, every turn, every quiet moment, and every trek. It's been an adventure, and I'm grateful to have shared it with you. As we close this tale, I wish you a peaceful evening. May you have a restful night, deep sleep, and dreams filled with wonder and light. Rest well, you've earned it. And when you're ready for the next story, I'll be here, waiting to journey with you again. Before you go, if you love this tale, drop a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what moved you, surprised you, or lingered long after the story's end. Until we meet again, good night, and see you in the next adventure.